Welcome, everybody. It's another episode of the podcast for Como Vanguard. I'm David Lyle. Nick Knoth is here. We'll introduce our third party in just a moment, but this is late August to talk about city business, and so that always means that they're spending long hours and not always about the budget, which is what they have to approve before their September meetings are over. Carrie Gartner is here. She is and I get titles wrong all the time, but I know that you are like the head person, the empress of the loop. So, Carrie, it's good to
Ex
see you again.
Good to see you, David, and Nick, executive director.
Executive director. So, my first question of curiosity is there was nothing on the city council agenda last night that I thought directly addressed anything happening on the loop. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, do you pay attention to city council meetings? Just because I know you to be a person very interested in the whole community of Columbia.
I absolutely do. I check the agenda, and in fact, I listen to clips just today of what happened last night.
Lucky you. You didn't spend 6.5 hours tied into that meeting. So what clips did you say? These have piqued my interest in the city council meeting.
I listened to some talk about urban camping. I listened to the discussion on downtown parking.
Because of your previous life.
Yes, yes. Very interested in parking free on the weekends in the garages.
Why?
That was something we created as a way to make sure that we could get people into the garages because there was so much excess inventory and stop complaining about parking and just park in the garages for free.
You used to head up the downtown,
Yes.
I don't know whether I should say association, CID. Again, I don't do titles really well, as Nick Knoth really knows that I don't do these well at all. But I wonder how much when you were downtown, did you find people complaining about parking when just a block away there were several spots?
Oh, it's constant. And I mean, I have to tell you, the great thing about moving to the Loop is that no one ever talked about parking or trash again. So it was lovely. I mean, we have our own mountains to scale, but it was quite a change.
So other than that, how do you feel about preserving Saturday free parking in the parking garages?
Here's what I can tell you. It was really created, one, as a way to help the businesses and to help customers, but it was really part of a larger overall package to manage parking. And you manage parking by figuring out how much things should cost, what should be higher, what should be lower, what should be free. And it was a way to really engineer parking. We had a lot of excess inventory in the garages, so you get people into the garages by making it free.
How many businesses, in your experience and in your knowledge, help their employees have parking? In other words, buy for them maybe spots in a parking garage. Or I think, at least way back a long time ago, First Baptist Church used to sell spots during the week to people who were working at some of the businesses downtown.
Yeah, it used to be very common when I was there for businesses to include that as a benefit
Mhm.
package to I would say more office workers, I would say, or they'd provide permits in garages and so forth. When I was there, we did implement another way to use unused curbside meter spaces in sections of the district like Ash and so forth. We instituted a really low cost employee parking program where employees could buy low cost permits for those unused meter spaces. And a lot of businesses bought meter permits for their employees.
I'm curious, Nick, you might know the answer to this, or Carrie. At Stevens College along the Brick Street, which is on the west side of Stevens College, that's a metered street there. Do some of the students get passes to park there all the time? I'm just curious because I've seen some have started back and I'm curious as to how they get to park there as long as they do without tickets.
Not to my knowledge,
Okay. I don't think so
uh,
either. I just want.
and it's funny, I'm thinking, I did serve for, and I won't say how many years, on the city's parking advisory commission, and so I should probably be sure of the answer to that. But I don't think that's the case.
Nick, I'm curious as to what you paid attention to in the meeting last night. What grabbed your attention mostly?
Not what grabs everybody else's attention, that's for sure. And, they continue the budget, which to me, I'm always looking for the amendments. What are the amendments that our council's requesting or that staff's requesting? Because the budget, like the core of the budget, is not very contentious to me, right? City has to fund its services, whether it's public safety or or roads and utilities and things like that, which make up the vast majority. And last night we finally got a glimpse at the amendments coming from staff. Most of them were it was a combination of being requests, the council amendments being a request from, or rather, sorry, the staff amendments being the request from council to correct things, technical corrections, and then also having better financial clarity on what things would actually cost. And so they were updating numbers there, which was interesting because those staff ones actually produce a reduction in expenditures as part of that proposed budget, which is not often the case, but nice to see.
And those amendments, and I might have missed this, but am I correct that VidWest Studios did not get funding this time around? As one of our, we've got 3 shared spaces on the loop that are great ways, affordable ways for people to start businesses or do podcasts, and they really rely on that small bit of funding every year from the city.
Yeah, the funding that they had been receiving for years remains zeroed out. That has not changed. No council member has made an amendment to change that, at least not as of yet. The night is young, so to speak, in terms of they've got essentially another month if anyone wanted to make any amendment, whether to that end or any other end. And I was actually surprised by how limited the number of council amendments there were. I think there were only like 5, and in the past, you're talking more like a dozen or so, and they were less than $1 million in expenditures. I think it was like just 750 something thousand, and most of that cost, I think 2/3 of that cost on the council amendments were related to parking or vehicle barriers for use by public safety and city staff for downtown and other events around town just to increase pedestrian safety during certain times of year, but
Here's what
nothing for Midwest came about. Do you have a
goes.
do you have a thought on the subject?
Yes, I
Yeah.
I I definitely think that, I mean, like I said, shared spaces, they are very affordable for the community to come in, start a business if you have a podcast, run a photography or videography studio. Also, I think that small amounts of money given to organizations that are volunteer run and working very hard and very successful, your dollar goes farther, 100%.
We've talked about VidWest quite a few times on our podcast, Nick, as you well know, and we've had conversations about this. Some people have made the point that VidWest is not doing for the city what it originally was doing as far as providing programming for something that now no longer exists as far as the city is concerned.
You mean people don't turn on the television set to watch city council meetings anymore?
No. I think, as we've said also, Nick and I are probably the only two that oftentimes stick through watching the streaming of that. But what you just said, Carrie, makes me a little bit concerned because small budget entities, and you said a little bit of money from the city really helps them out. But where would you draw the line? Because this is a nonprofit organization, VidWest, and there are a lot of nonprofits in town that are not getting any money from the city that have to go out and scrounge for it through grants or donations.
So I think one thing that the city has said that they are committed to is workforce development. The city's done that, the Ready has said that, and the Chamber of Commerce has said that. And if providing a organization that pays for very expensive equipment, pays for the space, and makes that available to small business startups at a reasonable rate isn't workforce development. It's the same category as our kitchen, which has been supported by the city. It's the same category as the MacLab Makerspace, which was supported by the state and the city. It's workforce development. And so I think that there are criteria that are in alignment with what the city says they value.
Give you that point. Let me ask you this. What are VidWest Productions producing now? In other words, what would I see that would be produced that is different than what an influencer can do or I can do with my phone? People are savvy enough to create good videos now and programs without having to have really expensive equipment.
So take it away from the idea of producing a program because, like I said, the whole cable access television is no longer a thing anymore. Technology's changed that. Think of it as creating businesses. There are a lot of small businesses that operate out of VidWest. They check out photography equipment, they check out the podcast studio, they reserve the studio, they record music. So what they're creating is business opportunities for people in Columbia.
I think it's such a great organization. I've toured there and I've met Matt members of his team. And frankly, I've explored their services for Como Vanguard because when I was when we were going down the Pass Running podcast, I was like, "Oh, I don't know that I want to pay for all this equipment." But anyways, I digress. I was just thinking, on one hand, it's a small amount of money for the city. There's no doubt about that because they're talking like $35,000. There's no arguing that, and it's certainly very apparently significant to Midwest, or they would not have launched a years long show up at every council meeting and have somebody give their life story about why Midwest is the most important thing on the planet campaign. And I've enjoyed those stories. Several of those have been very meaningful, some more than others, in proving its worth. Not that it needed proving, frankly, but I do think through the logistics of how the city operates, and they've said this a couple times over the last year, which is the city doesn't just give money to a nonprofit. Right. It gets something in return for it in terms of like, what is the service they're getting? The Loop, there's obvious things that are being delivered that the Loop does in your example. And I understand why there's like a struggle still to figure out like, what is that and where's that money coming from? Maybe it's Cultural Affairs Office and they need to do an RFP, right? But until they figure that out, I don't know that anything's going to change. And I also couldn't help myself but look at when they signed a petition or had a petition from their supporters done. It was around 700 signatures. And I was like, did the math there. I was like, if everybody gave $50, there's your 35 grand, which is representative of it's not a lot of money. And I'm somewhat shocked also that they haven't been able to go out and find it somewhere else. Maybe not through one donor or through one grant, but a series. I'm like, well, that's the role of running a nonprofit is that doesn't matter if you're the Boys and Girls Club or the Loop or, Central Missouri Community Action. Like you're always fighting for money. That's just the nature of the beast.
And to be clear, they need more than 35,000.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Their building needs repair. That's
And
for sure.
this is a time where we've seen across the board just funding from the federal government strip, particularly from arts organizations, particularly from organizations that deal with bicycling or pedestrians. It's difficult. And if we want to come out of this with any type of culture, I mean, Columbia was named the first arts community in the state of Missouri, simply on the backs of these wonderful artists and art organizations we have here. If we want to come out of this, we need to make sure that we have organizations that are still standing.
Absolutely.
So
My last tip to them is somebody called John Hamm. He's a Mizzou graduate. He seems like he'd care a lot about something like Midwest, given his background.
I'm gonna call this question to order. I mean, or whatever, like Betsy Peters does, bless her, in just a second. But I just want to say this then: when the Office of Cultural Affairs, or is that because Diana Moxon, when she spoke last night, she was representing, I think, the culture. Anyway, she was talking about the art community. So they get money budgeted. What keeps them from giving Midwest some of their budgeted money?
I think they do.
So
I mean, every organization has a multitude of funding streams. They team up with Access Arts. They've teamed up with the Office of Cultural Affairs.
but
And a lot of
they make it sound like they're not getting any money, and that would be city money, getting it from an organization that is a budget item.
and a lot of that's directed toward classes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other than I just want to make a couple of more comments. One is I find it to be very tedious to go through the same budget presentation every meeting. I think they're doing that, and I come from an industry that says repetition is crucial for getting a message across. I get that, but I don't get why you have to do that in a city council meeting. Now, you've sat through those, Nick, so you're going to have to help me out on this.
It's city charter. They have to do 3 public hearings.
Got
before
that.
passing
Do they
the budget.
have to do the same slide presentation with the same information that you could already have gone to lots of city meetings to, indeed community meetings, or let's hear be heard meetings, or city council meetings. It's the same stuff. I mean, I'd say
They
you
don't
got
have
it, folks.
to. I mean, yeah, they don't have to, but they're going to because the city's perspective is always going to be assuming that this is the first time anyone's ever walked into the halls of City Hall and just learned the budget exists. Frankly, I mean, that's kind of their approach at
But
every one of these events.
look at the crowd and take a census or take an attendance and say, have you heard this before? And can we move past this? And then also poll those of us who are watching online, and we'll say, let's move on. Let's move on.
I think
save
you would
ourselves
find
some time.
resistance amongst council. Even if staff was willing, I think council would say, "No, we need to do this again."
Well, I want them to be on record as to who it is that says, "We want to hear this again," and say, "Where you been?" The other thing, I really thought I have a most interesting part of the meeting last night, and I watched it till 10 o'clock on live, and then I watched the final 2.5 hours earlier today. And I thought the most interesting part to me of that meeting came when they were talking about vacating the pedestrian walkway in Old Hawthorne.
Yeah.
And I thought that's a fascinating discussion because I thought the most honest response that I have heard by a city council person in a long time was from the newly elected Sharon Jones, who represents the Fourth Ward and who used to, well, has just until a week or so ago headed up planning and zoning. She was having a hard time controlling her anger at developers and construction people who she says knew what they were doing and tried to get around what was required by the city by building something that now looking back on it, they had no choice but to say we have to vacate that easement area.
And just to paint a picture for listeners, what we're talking about is that when a subdivision development goes into play, there's a limit on how long streets can be before there's a turn or some other change in direction.
Length of a block.
Length of a block, exactly.
Yeah.
One of the ways that developers can not get around it, but change how it's approached or considered by the city is to have a cut through between streets that is pedestrian. So a trail, a sidewalk, essentially. And that was what occurred in this case was that the city greenlit this section of Old Hawthorne with this cut through between streets, which takes up space from neighboring houses, and that's why easements exist. What occurred is that the homes have since most, I think all but one of the homes that border this trail, proposed trail, because it doesn't exist right now and it's not going
It
to,
won't exist.
have been built. And now people are realizing, hey, our homes are in the right of way of this easement. And if you built that trail as it's supposed to have been built, it's going to be up against my house essentially because of how close the houses got built where they shouldn't have been built.
Yeah, they showed pictures of the houses and they were talking about a 12-foot easement with an 8-foot trail through there. Well, that would have been up against the edges of the house. And
Right.
the councilwoman who represents that area said she went out there and took pictures. And the pictures that were shown at the council meeting last night did not accurately portray how much land that would have taken through there. But the discussion was really good. And Sharon Jones was very angry because she says, look, when somebody develops an area, they know what the plot looks like and they know what is required in that. So it was, I think, hinting at, if not saying, that the people who built those homes knew what they were doing. And then the city admitted that they messed up because when they were out inspecting, they should have caught that. So there was a lot there. And when they are asking now to vacate that easement, which in my opinion, they had to, because the owners were blameless of the people who are involved, the builders, the city, and the homeowners. The homeowners were the blameless ones. They didn't know. Their builders should have known. And so what happened was, and I thought that this was a good point, that I'm not sure whether Councilwoman Jones or some other councilwoman did this, said, so we will vote to vacate this easement, but what is to prevent future builders from knowing what is required, ignoring that and building, knowing that they can come back and ask for, well, sorry, made a mistake. Now give us permission to go ahead with what we got.
Well, I think Clint Smith, the community development director, made a really good point, and he owned it too in terms of, as you just said, which is kind of everyone but the homeowners to blame. The city staff, the developer, and the builder all failed their respective roles. And part of that the city is addressing their part is putting in processes and systems that will trigger certain things happening and also stopping the approval process on lots that adjoin these types of easements for further review so they don't just get automatically greenlit without further deliberation. I think, frankly, on the city's part, that's all they need to do
Yeah.
because there's not many of these, thankfully, that occur. Because again, it's kind of if you can't meet the block by block lengths, this is an alternative option that is not frequented. It certainly has grown in more recent years, but we're not talking hundreds. We're talking maybe a dozen, frankly.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change what happened. And Sharon Jones was not alone in
No.
her contempt for the situation. I think that was rather unanimous by council. And I did find it noteworthy, like you said, that not only she, but even I don't know the gentleman's name, but the attorney from the city attorney's office who was sitting in
Yep.
for Nancy Thompson's spot said as much, saying that they probably have a civil case
Yeah.
if they're interested. Um, and I wouldn't be surprised if something occurs in that scenario, but
I'm not sure they have a civil case now, though, since the city has said we're not going to require it. So, I mean,
well,
what would they have a civil case on?
I'm curious to know if it's the homeowners or the builder developer who paid. You have to pay for the application to have it
Yeah, and
vacated.
that was what I think Christina Hartman asked, how
Yeah,
much money is the city going to be out in giving that application or something, which
yeah.
again, she asked how much money is going to be
And
lost on everything.
one of those homeowners said they paid an extra 10 grand for that lot
For
specifically.
that lot, well, they got that lot and they're
Yeah,
not going to have the trail through there. So
yeah. But
they
there's
should
always
be
pain and
satisfied.
suffering. You can sue for pain and suffering.
But I would say this for her first
35,000.
meeting, Sharon Jones, I mean, when she was saying, I am extremely angry and having trouble controlling herself over the anger of this, as someone with the background from planning and zoning who really understands the issue.
Mhm. Carrie, what were you saying there? Or are you just putting it in perspective that cost?
The fine, $35,000. That's exactly what it should be.
we we won't dig into that. We'll leave that like it is. But yes, that development related issue certainly we fairly one of the more interesting things from last night. Like we said, the budget occurred. Check your plats, folks, before you start putting stakes down to build your home. Don't trust everyone. And then, of course, public safety was an issue last night. We heard from the downtown DCID of the district spoke during scheduled public comment, formally requesting council and staff to consider and bring forward an urban camping ordinance of some sort. And it was Nikki Davis, the executive director, and Lara Piper. Is that? I think that's it. Or
Yes.
Peeper. That's her name. I just might be mispronouncing it. She's on. I believe she's the chair of their board.
Yep.
Their request stems from nothing new, frankly, which is businesses experiencing issues with folks sleeping out front of their businesses, which doesn't help get people to come in the door. There was examples they gave of business owners and their staff having to pick up human waste, things like that. I am unclear myself, frankly, on what exactly they're asking for, but when they talk about this urban camping ordinance, it seems kind of vague. And I'm curious your thoughts, Carrie, if you're willing to offer any from your time both being in that position downtown before, just in context, even or providing some color for us. And then, of course, your role now with the Loop. Homelessness is not just downtown; it's citywide, and there's issues good and bad with it all over. And so, I'm curious your perspective.
I think part of the question is what is on the books now? And if what is on the books now is sufficient, why is it not being enforced? What are the barriers to enforcement? So I don't know the answers to those questions. What I can say is, this was something that came up with us. My board looked at it and our thought was, look, we just opened on our street the Opportunity Campus. We didn't open it, back opened the Opportunity Campus. That was something that we had some concerns about, but we got behind as a solution to people sleeping in our loading docks or in our doorways. The idea that there's a better way to shelter people or take care of people or have a place to send people. And so the thought is this just opened. So let's see how this solution that we as a community got behind. Let's see how this solution is going to play out. And let's see if we can have their folks out there helping to get people into the shelter, to get services, to get care, to get mental health, physical health needs met, and see how that can shake out.
See, I kind of like you saying that because as I watch some of the discussions about the unhoused people, and I think we have the Opportunity Campus. Why are we still talking about no services for people when we have services? The only thing I think during the very end of the meeting, when it was public comments, there was the man from Como Aid, and I don't have the
Mhm.
title correct there, but he was talking, and his solution was why doesn't the city designate an area where electricity is provided, where maybe some hygiene would be provided, and then just an area where those who won't go to the Opportunity Campus or can't get through the screening for other services would have a no barrier access to this. I think other communities have tried that, and I don't think that works. So I'm not happy with that
Yeah.
suggestion, but that was his suggestion to as an answer to those of us like me who say, why are we still hearing people talk about lack of services when we have been sold the Opportunity Campus as a one-stop place for getting yourself a place to stay, getting something to eat, getting mental health, getting help finding a job, getting help X, Y, and Z.
We've all and we work closely with Jessica McNear, the shelter director, who's wonderful. And we've all been very clear that this is not a 100% solution. There will always be people who do not want to be in a very regulated structure. There are people who are traumatized who literally do not want to be in a building. So there are all sorts of exceptions to a great facility. And then at some point, it will get to the point where there are not enough beds. We literally don't have enough space to put people. So it's not a 100% solution, but it's like an 85% solution, which I think is a big
Yeah.
deal. And so to support that process going forward is important. One other thing they're doing is they're realizing that not everyone feels comfortable in a shelter or wants to be in that shelter experience, but you can come into the day shelter, get a shower, wash your clothes, have the vets look at your dog.
Mhm.
And then they also have big 25-gallon Tupperwares that you can store stuff in. So what all the counselors are trying to encourage is, hey, do not feel that you have to carry all your stuff around with you. You can have a safe place to put the most important stuff, and we will watch that for you. Come here and access it. So again, it's time.
I made a donation to him, and I know what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I support that. What I'm saying is I'm tired of people who are regularly complaining to the council or otherwise saying, "Well, we need more services." I'm thinking, like you just said a while ago, let it work out. Let's see what happens here. But then again, there are going to be some that you can put services galore, triple what you're offering now, and there's still going to be some people who are going to say, "I don't want it," or "It doesn't suit me. I don't fit in there."
There are problems that not just our community faces, but every community faces. Homelessness is one. Graffiti is one. There are
Uh-huh.
all sorts of things. And what we find in cities all across the country is if you can knock down 85% of a problem, you've created a huge difference in your community. There's always going to be that like 5, 10, 15% out there that is unsolvable, and people don't want to hear that it's unsolvable. And there are people that will continue to address that, but at some point we all have to realize that like an 85 or 90% solution is going to make a significant impact in a positive way on our community.
Yeah, and I agree, especially the whole like give it time. But nobody ever wants to hear that with anything. But it's just now running, and I'm hopeful for it.
They
I did,
they
uh,
opened what, like 3 weeks ago.
Not very
yeah,
long
It
ago.
was
because they did
July.
stages,
it's
right? They
So
did
crazy.
stages.
They just
Yeah.
yeah,
opened.
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. I agree completely. I did find it very interesting, the comment from that gentleman that David mentioned, and I'm blanking on his name as well, from the Como Mobile Aid Collective, who brought essentially brought back the notion of a city sanctioned homeless encampment of some sort that would feature, ideally, some type of electrical and plumbing so that those issues could be addressed. And I find it interesting because I remember that being a subject when I was on council, and it being that was something Nick Foster pushed for heavily. And I recall the city looking into it, and the two main barriers were: one, nobody wants that next to them, and two, the costs of us both establishing the site in terms of plumbing and electrical and just infrastructure in general for it, wherever it might be, and then two or three, who is managing the site, because the city doesn't want to manage it, right?
That's the
And
problem. You can't do something that's not managed.
yeah,
And the good thing about the Opportunity Camp is it's very highly
Yeah, for
managed.
yeah.
sure.
And that
The
was essentially why that idea got shelved. It was like, hey, we're doing the Opportunity Campus. Let's put all of our eggs in that basket and invest in that, rather than do some type of, again, encampment that no one's going to be happy with, really.
I want to say that Larry Rice in St. Louis tried that a few years ago, and I just don't think it worked. But anyway, that's an interesting discussion. One more thing from last night when they were talking about the city code, I wanted two things. One for Mark Farnan to still be alive because he loved that
talking the city
subject.
Yes.
He
code.
was
Yeah.
just, and no, he knew it so well. And the other thing, I thought that was a little bit of there was a lot of tension in regard to that because of how the city presented that, saying there were like 9 areas there that were the city code that needed to be approved, updated to 2023 or 2024 national codes or the International Building Code, but they had held back the one about environment and
Energy.
energy. Yeah, because they wanted, and I thought Betsy Peters made the point. She said they've held that back on purpose because they knew it was going to be more of a conversation starter than any of the other ones that you have. And but boy, that took a long time. And I just thought there was a lot of of tension there between the staff and the council members because of how that was being handled.
There certainly appeared to me to be a perception amongst at least a couple council members that that was done maliciously.
Exactly.
And I don't know why that's feeling on the subject because I wasn't surprised by that at all.
Mm-mm.
Because the rest of the code isn't contentious, right? Everybody wants the latest fire code, everybody wants the latest electrical code, blah blah blah. The energy code, there's a reason why Columbia still operates off the 2018 code is because it's not straightforward and there's not been a consensus around it. And so now they're just now considering the 2024 codes. And I think staff was wise. Perhaps they didn't communicate it well, and that's nothing new, to plan to have it in its own session because it is going to be a couple hours of debate. I don't doubt that whatsoever.
I would agree with you. And the staff I thought handled it pretty well, but maybe could have informed better. But I didn't see it on the agenda at all, so I wasn't surprised that it wasn't for discussion there. I think Mark Heim said, we came prepared to discuss this tonight, and we're disappointed that it's not part of the discussion. Well, I didn't feel like it was part of the discussion on the agenda, so I wasn't shocked that they weren't going to talk about it. But the only point that I thought was good when they were discussing the code was when I think it was an attorney probably representing builders who said, if you accept this, then all of the applications that are already approved, they're good, but anything that is already in the works, and let's say it's 90, he didn't say this, but I'm saying 90% concluded, and then on October the 2nd, they hand it in, it's going to be rated by the newly adopted revisions and not by the old. And he said that puts them at an unfair advantage and give us more lead time to prepare for the new codes. I thought that was a good point. I thought the city also had a pretty good answer on that, but that was good.
Yeah, that
Only
was
worthwhile part of that in my
so
opinion.
that was Caleb Colbert with Hayden Colbert, local attorney extraordinaire, especially when it comes to building and development, who essentially was asking for a transition period, which is not uncommon at all in other cities.
And he pointed that out.
It's not something the city of Columbia has ever done. The city, as Clint Smith noted, has always instituted on the fiscal year, October 1, the start of the new energy codes, or not energy codes, but building codes in general, that they adopt because, as Clint Smith noted, it is administratively convenient and reliable, and it creates just a fair playing field in terms of everybody knows the deadline, you meet it or you don't, and that's it.
We've talked a lot about the city council meeting. I think we can bring Carrie Gartner back in here, and I want to start talking about the loop. What do you like about the loop? Why are you energized by what you do?
I love the folks on the street. We just have a lot of, you don't feel like it, but there's a lot of great local businesses here. A lot of people who care about the street and a lot of people who came together and said, hey, pay attention to us, please, and are working very hard to make some changes. So that's what's great about it. The other thing I hear, and I tend to agree, is that when you think about it, it's kind of one street that still has some outside of downtown. It's still a street that has a lot of history. We've lost some of our historic buildings, but it still has a lot of history to people, and people talk about it with fondness. Hickman graduates in particular.
I'm looking at your banners. We are in your
Yeah.
office. First of all, how do you tell people to find your office?
Yeah, I usually say it's across from Bob McCosh.
Oh, yeah, that would work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they kind of like a big sign, a bunch of cars out there. Everyone,
Next to Boost Mobile.
yeah.
And across from Love Coffee also, and Ennis
Yeah.
Appliance is here. So,
Yeah, we've got a great little
Well,
retail
you-
space here.
Before we go any further, Carrie, just to level set for our listeners, will you share with them what is the loop? What are we talking about? And what do you do? What does the organization do?
We are a community improvement district, just like in downtown. So we're local government, which means we follow all those rules about transparency and public input and so forth. We run from essentially Aldi's to Arch and Columns. We're West Boulevard Roundabout to College. We're each property that fronts the street because the goal of our organization is to transform the road. It's to do a corridor plan for the street. And so we have two main goals. One is the environment, which is streetscape and beautification. And the second one is the economy, which is business support and makers and startups.
What I started to say a while ago is I'm looking out of
Oh,
your
yeah.
office window and I see the loop sign, but also a banner next to it that says 100 years of Highway 40.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. And it's a basketball image behind this one, I'm going to guess, and I haven't looked at the other ones, probably different pictures behind it.
All different eras, and on our website we gave a overview of what they are. So we have one of the Boone County Fair when it
Uh-huh.
was over at Hickman High School property. The one you're talking about is the Hickman High School basketball players. We've got one of the West Boulevard, which was a mess before they put in the roundabout, right when it turned from Highway 40 into Business Loop and put in I-70. And then the other one it's a bunch of kids in the 50s hanging out in really classic cars wearing leather jackets in the Hickman High School parking lot. Yeah, it's just out of grease.
So if you had the money and the time, what would the loop look like?
You mean if I had the $35 million it's going to take to fix up
Yeah,
this
if you wanted to
baby?
make this into what you want it to look like, what would it look like?
So we were talking earlier about block lengths. So when you think about the street, you think of how easy it is to cross the street downtown or in any other section of town. It is impossible to cross the street here. Our blocks are so long, which means that to get a cup of coffee, I have to hop across 4 lanes of traffic. To get a Subway sandwich, the Hickman kids have to run across 5 lanes of traffic because there's just not any crosswalks or stoplights. And then the cars just speed up on that straightaway. So part of it is, how do we make this a street that instead of a place people just speed down to get someplace else, how do we, make it a place where people want to kind of slow down a little bit, make it a place that's safer for people to cross the street so they can, spend some money with their neighbors?
How would it look aesthetically? In other words, when was the last time a new building was built along the loop? And what would you do? Some of these buildings are very utilitarian, trying to be as nice as
They
they
are.
can on this.
They are. So we understand what we are. I didn't come on thinking, oh, we're going to turn this into like wine bars and art galleries. I mean, we do home improvement stores. We do auto repair. That's what this street is. I mean, the people that come to the street are wearing work boots and gloves, and they come here for lunch and get hamburgers and tacos. So we know that we have this kind of like hands-on DIY, small-scale manufacturing thing going, which is why we built a kitchen in our office. So we know what we got. That doesn't mean that people don't want to walk down the street or bike down the street. That doesn't mean that, a tree or two might not be welcome, right? So and landscaping can help with the flooding and the stormwater management and so forth. So the easy things to say are sidewalks, undergrounding power lines, bike lanes or cycle tracks, and then crosswalks and landscaping, and maybe some like rain gardens to deal with the water runoff. That's not rocket science, right? That is absolutely not rocket science. It's just expensive putting all that together. And right now, thank goodness the city came on board to team up. It's a MoDOT road, and MoDOT is saying, it's not our job to make every one of our business loops across the state as pretty as a Columbia Street, but they're like, but go for it. If you guys can find the money, do it. So teamed up with the city. So we have a $2.5 million planning project that we're doing that now. We had our first round of public input sessions in the spring. We're doing another one in the fall, and they've got some really incredible ideas where they're really saying, look at all this space we have, look at all this public space we have, and they're kind of just tossing it up and putting it back together in different ways.
I think you said something a while ago about the way people drive through here. When I'm driving on the business loop, it feels like maybe I don't want to go fast, but everybody's going fast. And there's so much to see along the business loop. It's very hard. For example, your office, you're by it just like that.
Yep.
And
I know.
And it's very hard because you're in this stream and you have maybe a destination on the business loop. Many people don't have a destination on the business loop. It's to get through the business loop so they can take Providence and get on the interstate when that's accessible, or go down to the end and get back on the interstate. I mean, it's a very fast moving stream with a lot of attractions along the edges of it.
And it's a 35-mile-an-hour zone.
Well,
and a 20-mile-an-hour outside Hickman. So here's the thing that MoDOT is actually doing for Columbia. As part of their I-70 thing, they're doing kind of a collector distributor road. So you can go like all down like the length of Columbia on I-70, but you just don't have to go into the main traffic. So you can actually do your quick cut across traffic in I-70, never have to engage with the cross state I-70 traffic. So if you want to get across Columbia quickly, you can do that. You don't have to like speed down the business loop. You can chill and go, look at Love Coffee. That would be a lovely place to stop and have a pastry.
But then it's also hard to go left off the business loop in some places.
Yes,
So, I mean, you got to
that's
go,
true.
got to find a way to make a loop so you can go back around the other way.
Yeah, it's ironic that we're called the loop. We are straight and you can't make a U-turn. It's just I do not
Not
know
legally.
who is naming any of these things, but there you go.
So I have a question for you. That large planning process is underway,
Yes.
which I remember. I think that money got awarded or it was applied for when I was on council. One of the two. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, we did a couple rounds.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, we got a perfect score from US Department of Transportation for our first application, and they said, "We really, really wanna give this to you, but Columbia also got, like, a perfect score for some other project, so
Mhm.
we're gonna give it to them, but can you please apply next year?" I'm like, "Well, I guess
Mm.
that's a champagne problem to have."
So my question is, the planning process is underway. When that plan is produced and you have a direction to go,
Yes.
there's still going to be the question of, well, who's paying for it? And as you noted, and this is always one of my favorite subjects in Columbia is, ding, ding, ding. This is a MoDOT road, and MoDOT is not a fan of over investing in anything. So, what is your thought process of, do you think is the answer? Should the city of Columbia take possession of the
Oh,
loop?
absolutely.
Yeah,
So MoDOT is 100% on board with the city of
of
Columbia
course.
taking over the road. They're not gonna pay to do that, but they're not getting in our way. I mean, and I gotta be honest, MoDOT's just been they've been great to work with the I-70 stuff. So,
Mhm.
but the city says we need federal funding to rebuild the road and do like 50 years of deferred maintenance to take over the road. So once we get a sense of what the plan is and how much it costs, then we have a shovel-ready project, which means we go to the front of the line. And I was just talking to a community in New York who they had done this process too, and they just got awarded $25 million from the feds to rebuild their business loop. And so we're looking forward to that next round of grant funding. And it's not just US Department of Transportation funding we're looking at. If we need to do stormwater management, which also gets us some landscaping, then there's grants through EPA and so forth. And so there's just kind of layering of funding that we're aiming for.
So the money would go for infrastructure like drainage and things like that, but then also some landscaping because, I mean, if you get money, I think people would like to see a beautification process or something like that.
Yeah. So it would go, I mean, a lot of it's literally like hardscape. So we got to make sure like the sewers work,
Mm.
the storm sewers work. We have to underground the electric,
Mm.
particularly on the east side. We have to put in cycle tracks, sidewalks. We have to do curb and gutters, all of that
Yeah.
stuff. But then we can come back and do fun stuff. Like we have money to do some fun stuff as well to make it pretty.
So businesses along the business loop, they
Yeah.
pay into the
Yeah.
yeah,
It's just like downtown. So
and
property tax and sales tax.
so they would also have to take some responsibility at some point to beautify what would be from their door to wherever you were responsible for adding
Yeah.
sidewalks and grass areas.
Yeah. And yes. Yes. And what we found is that if you can beautify the public space, then it'll encourage the private owners to make an investment in their space as well. And it's because all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm not throwing good money after bad,
Mm.
right? This is a space that people care about and are going to take care of.
Um,
Yes,
I
David.
think it's a shame that the old I'm just jumping around right now. Towards the east, that hotel, was it the Arrowhead Hotel or
Mhm.
whatever that was? I
Yeah.
mean, that was really cool, but it's too
Yeah.
bad that couldn't have been saved, and then losing Ellis Fischel Hospital, which was this, big imposing building and things like that, which you probably are glad is gone, but, I mean, there could be
No.
something that could be done there. I mean, there are lots of things.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the Garth and Business Loop intersection, we've got 4 acres on one side where the O'Reilly burned down. And then on the other side, we've got 30 acres of Mizzou North. Yeah, and it's a shame we've lost a lot of the older buildings here. And I have to say the street was always like this. It was always like a lot of single use, single story like gas stations and service stations because it was a cross country road.
Mhm.
It was I know Route 66 has the song, but we were one of the first cross country roads and that's what put Columbia on the map.
Where does 40 highway become Highway 40?
Oh,
Because
I
I
guess
have
St.
Kansas
Louis
City
is
people. It's 40 highway in Kansas City, and it's Highway 40. I mean, it's funny depending
isn't
on
that
where you are. It's like
funny?
Missouri and Missouri. I
My
think there's
gosh.
a difference.
Oh, that's an existential question that no one can answer,
Oh
David.
well, then I like that. I got that. I have one more question. Then I'll be quiet. You bike.
Yes.
And so how safe do you feel biking? Do you bike along the business loop as little as
Do you
possible?
see my cute bike
I do
behind
see
me
your
right
cute
now?
bike, but
Yes.
you can come up to the business loop and go back away from the business
Yeah.
loop without riding along the business loop because I like to bike. I would not bike on the business loop.
So here's one thing that's great. We have a bike boulevard that comes straight to Parkade Plaza, and then there's a little spur that goes to Hickman.
Yep.
So if you're kind of tooling around in the neighborhoods to our south, you can do Bike Boulevard all the way here. And that's what I tend to do. And I talk to cyclists all the time or pedestrians. We have a lot of people on the street that use wheelchairs. I mean, you would be surprised, which is why I'm always saying we need sidewalks. Everyone kind of tools around in the neighborhoods and then pops out where they need to be, or they kind of win their way through parking lots in order to get to a place where they need to be. And that's something our the planning team that's looking at this asked people. We brought people in, they go, and then we found out we all use the same secret paths through parking lots and so and that's kind of why they're talking cycle track, which is
Mm.
you have a sidewalk and then you have a separate bike track. We talk about pedways here, which is a combo, but how do we get a cycle track through
Would that be
here?
a protected cycle track?
So if you mean
Like a barrier between the auto traffic and
yeah,
the biking
they'd
traffic?
they'd like that. But here's what we're seeing. The geographics and kind of the layout of the street is so different in different areas. Like out here we have like no space, but out by Cosmo Park you've got a ton of space. So it might change depending on where you are.
Mm.
So as you travel
Mhm.
down a mile and a half or more of street, it might change a little, but it won't feel awkward when you're traveling down it.
I want to share my pipe dream. So
Oh,
first of all,
monorail.
Oh
first of all, the business loop to me has always been the area in town that has the most potential to be a gym, and I love that that's what you guys are working towards.
Oh, thank you.
And I've always felt that. I continue to feel that, and it's just like I-70 where I'm just like it's a work in progress, and someday we're gonna get there, like it's happening,
It is.
right? So that's not my pipe dream, but I just want to say that my pipe dream, and feel free to burst my balloon, is the Mizzou North location. Man, what a spot! My pipe dream has been, and I remember I shared this with some folks before at the end of my time on council. And I was like, my pipe dream is that is utilized as an anchor development to help spur more things on the loop. And by that I mean I think that's an amazing location for a multi-use development that is several stories tall with mixed income housing above the ground floor, and the ground floor being a mix of professional services, everything from an attorney to a child care facility and anything in between. And I think that would be an amazing location for it.
I mean, look, it's right by I-70. It's on a very busy street, which will soon be a very lovely street. Soon, 5 years. And it's got infrastructure already. And I don't know what Mizzou North wants to do. I don't think they know yet, but I think they don't want it to lose money.
Yeah, I know the university loves to be charitable. Perhaps they should donate it to the land trust, and on the condition that it's developed into said multi-use housing and
Right.
multi-income housing.
You've now been appointed to the Mizzou North Committee, Nick.
I don't know that you want that, but
Yeah.
anyways, that's my pipe dream.
But
Like I said,
there's so much opportunity on the street and just I mean right now we're missing the Providence Bridge as you've probably noticed. But, we donated money to fix that and to add, beautification elements to make it a gateway onto the loop. There's going to be, a better entrance onto our street. And then the question is, how do we then, if Providence and Business Loop is the hub of our street, how do we then build on that and make it definitely a gateway into Columbia so that we don't have to rely on the medians in the middle of our street to make sure parents dropping their kids off for college don't just take a U-turn and drive right back to where they came from.
I wish you great success. But again, the businesses, a lot of businesses along, and I'm thinking right where you just described at Providence and the Business Loop. You know what? MoEx,
Yeah.
terrific business,
Yeah.
great success, but it's a garage. I mean, it
Yeah.
looks like it's a bus parking lot.
We
So,
are
I mean,
home and auto.
and it's utilitarian. I mean,
Yeah.
that works for them,
Yeah.
and that's what they have to work, and that's the Business Loop.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, and we want to do things in keeping with the character of the street. Like I said, we know we're home auto
but that doesn't
services.
speak beautiful to me. I mean, so
Yeah, but look at across the street is Hickman,
yeah, I know.
which is going to be 100 years old next year. And what if we put like gardens out there? And what if we put some art on that corner? What if we have a beautiful bridge coming up there? No one's going to look at like a bus depot. They're going to go, great, I can take a bus into St. Louis to catch a plane now.
Oh, and again,
No,
I don't want anybody to hear I'm putting down MoEx. I'm not. That's
No, I
a
know.
wonderful business, and
Yeah.
it's working right there
Yeah.
because they've made it.
we don't
from-
want them jumping on MoEx to go to St. Louis. We want them to use the Columbia Airport.
We want our businesses to thrive, right? Or how about this? Once we get this street done, I'm going to rent a bus for MoEx. I'm going to have you invite 50 of your closest friends, David Lyle.
I don't really have 50
and
friends,
we-
but you
and
could
we're
do
going
it
to
with
drive
one of the-
up and down the street. We're going to look at how
You could
great
just
it is.
rent one of their vans or limos. That would be fine. I know we're running short on time, but I know how proud you are because you gave us the tour a moment ago of your kitchen
Yes.
area. Tell people in your elevator speech, a little bit longer than that, I suppose, but about what that is, what the name of it is, and how it's being used.
We have a shared commercial kitchen called Como Cooks. It is an incubator kitchen. It's designed to lower the barriers to start a business because it's very expensive to start a food-based business, really low hourly rates. So we have about 45 businesses working out of there right now.
And the variety of food goes from
It's
what to what.
insane. It is insane. We have all sorts of African food. It's Missouri, so everybody does barbecue and wings, right? And then we've got Korean, we've got 2 chocolate makers. We've got biscuit makers, a ton of bakers. We've got some of the most diverse food here. Indian food, it's amazing. Here's what we encourage. They're all independent businesses. They don't have big marketing budgets. If you go to comocooks.com, you can do 2 things there. Number 1, you can find out how to sign up and be in the kitchen yourself if you are making hot sauce or if you are a baker or if you're a caterer or have a food truck. Or number 2, you can get a list of our vendors. And then you'll follow them on social media or on their webpage to figure out how to find their food. So come support some local businesses. They're all people who are like, this is their second job and they're working hard and making the big time.
Can you sign up for being a voluntary taste tester?
Oh, right. And here's the other thing too. There are a lot of them at the farmer's market. So, yay, local farmer's market.
Last question for you, Carrie. What is your favorite place on the loop that you think is incredibly under the radar? It could be food, it could be a service. People do not know this exists, but it's right here on the loop.
I laugh that you're asking me to pick which of my children I like
I
the
know.
best.
It's more a question of what's the most under the radar?
Here's what I can say. I taught an Osher class, and I teach it every summer, where they come to Como Cooks and take a tour and decorate cookies. They go over to the MacLab Makerspace in the basement of Parkade, and they take a tour, and then they all make handbags. Like they do a vinyl press and make their own tote bags. And we take them to Midwest Studios. They take a tour, and they learn how to take better pictures on their iPhone. And they are amazed. And what I learn is that when people get inside the buildings and see what's happening inside, they're amazed. So that's what I recommend.
No favorite burger place, or you plead the fifth?
Oh, there's yeah, there's some really good stuff. Jeff's just got
Mhm.
Best of Columbia for like the 900th time year in a row. Dive Bar just got
Mhm.
Best of Columbia, and Rich Tripler, local bartender, just started at Dive Bar, so highly recommend. So
Come on down the loop, folks. Please go the speed limit. Well, this has been the Como Vanguard podcast. Carrie Gardner, Executive Director for the Business Loop. Thank you so much
Oh,
for joining us
thanks for having me.
and for hosting us in your lovely office. Stop in, say hi to her, ask for a private tour of the kitchen, which it may be cooking back there at that point.
Absolutely.
And David, any last thoughts?
Nope.
All
I
right.
enjoyed the conversation.
Me too.
Thank you.
All right. We will see you all next time. Thanks for listening.
I had a banana, an orange juice, and then Nature Valley granola bar.
Oh,
So,
I don't do sugar. I can't do sugar because
oh,
it gives me migraine, so I can't have the granola bar, but I have to have, like, protein, but I don't like meat, so it's like, what do you do?
yeah, I like peanut butter a lot, but I mean, I put butter and cinnamon on my toast. But again, cinnamon is sugar, so
Well,
because I mix a whole lot of sugar with cinnamon. I mean, my mom
cinnamon d I'm
brought
not
me
gonna
up on that.
argue with cinnamon toast. That's
Yeah.
amazing. There's just
Peanut butter is meant for bread by itself, untoasted.
Oh, so it's just the toast, it's not the bread with peanut butter. So if
Right,
I just had a
right.
piece of bread with
Oh,
peanut butter,
that would be fine.
plain.
I love that.
Hot bread with peanut butter. Mhm.
I've definitely done that. I remember doing that as a kid. I think that was a frequent affair.
Did you did you turn the toaster on its side to make sure it gets melty and stick it
Oh,
back
that's
in?
really weird.
Oh, no. I haven't heard of that.
Well, I just used the broiler, but that's what I used to do
You
as a child until
so you
mom
put
found
peanut
out.
butter on the bread while it's in the toaster?
Well, yeah, but you gotta turn on its side so the peanut butter doesn't melt into the
I definitely
I
never
understand
experienced
what you're
that.
saying, but that's
You're on a different level.
see,
You're on a
that's
different level.
see, even he's agreeing with me now.
always.
And I don't, well, I'm not saying it's in a bad level. I'm
It's
just
that
saying it's
type of
different.
innovative, outside the box thinking that's gonna allow the business loop to be amazing.